The final round of the Groundtrax Northern Off-Road Championship would see a number of crews able to take that title. And with the race to the championship so close, there would be no room for error. On to the first day of competition then, and what a competition it would shape up to be. It was the early lead for Huggy Farmer and Richard Rawlinson. They were, of course, in the championship hunt, and there was nothing more they could do than to lead the way and see what happened and played out behind them.
Yeah, it's going really well. We're currently leading the event by nearly a minute. The car's running fantastic. We're balding the tyres off because we're power sliding at over 100 miles an hour. What more? I can't do any more. We're leading. I've just got to hope that other people have problems, and the points at the end of the event will show us where we all lie in the championship.
For Toby Jefferson, it would be second place. He was clearly having fun out there, making the most of the smoother corners on the course and sliding that car around. And the times were about as good as the entertainment too. A minute off the lead, but holding his own in that second position.
Yeah, definitely having fun. Yeah, it's been a really good day. Weather's been kind to us, as you can see. Started off this morning I come for a bit of a goon about really, and come for a bit of a slide about corners because it's that kind of course. So that's what we did first couple of laps, and then made the mistake of going to the wagon and looking at the times, and we were doing quite well, so it all got a bit more serious. So we've tidied it up. Got run times are getting a little bit quicker when you tidy it up. It's not as much fun, but we've done that. We've done 6 laps today, no problems on the car. We had a slow puncher with something wedged into the side of the rim, but it didn't cost us any time.
It will be a great start to the event for Aston Cox, leading the way in Class 8 at the end of Day 1, and with third place on the leaderboard as well, a good position to be in going into Day 2. And things had started well for Richard Copsey and Mark Shaw as well. They led the way after the opening run. However, things would go a little wrong on the following run as the pair suffer with a broken prop shaft, having to limp the car around in order to keep those championship hopes alive. With a lot of help, they do get the car fixed, showing what this sport is all about, and they're back out for the remaining runs of the day to end with 4th place, still very much in that hunt.
We had a first good run, we were leading it to begin with, and then the prop shaft decided to let go on one at runs, and as you can see, it's a fair old mess really. So with a bit of luck and a bit of help, we had a spare one, and Guy and Mark put it together, and before you knew it, we were back up and running again, setting some good times. So it's we're bouncing back up there, but I don't know if we'll get to the top because we lost over 2 minutes, probably 2 minutes 10, I think. So we're just going to keep going as we're going, and we'll scrape second, I think, if all goes well.
Tim Sagar makes a great start to lead the way in Class 9. He will be just over a minute back from Copsey at this stage, but the times were improving as the day went on. Steve Hill and Steve Armand will be second in that class. It could have been a different story, but the pair suffer with a broken half shaft, having to limp round run 5. But with no more time to complete the repairs, it will be 2-wheel drive for the final run to end the day with 6th place overall. Becca Clarkson, meanwhile, will be swapping seats this weekend, making her debut in the driver's seat of the car that her dad drove to victory on the previous round, of course. With no seat time in the car, though, it will be a cautious start, ending the day with a very impressive, given all that, 7th place overall, 4th in the class. For Ian Goodyear, it will be 8th place overall. The times were good enough for second in Class 8 as well, and with a good advantage in that place. For John Rennie, it will be the Class 1 lead, a good start to the event and showing some good pace right from the off. Now, rounding out the top 10 will be Phil Bayliss, a great start to the event and leading the way in Class 4, certainly showing commitment out there on the course. Looking at some of the places outside of our top 10 leaderboard, and it will be 11th place for Dean Hoskins and Tim Longfield. They'd be lucky to be there at all though, after this moment later in the day when the car almost went onto its roof. Luckily, they do get away with it and continue to end the day 11th. Matt and Edmund Elvin would unfortunately be suffering with a 5-minute penalty, putting them in 12th place on the leaderboard, Without that, things could have been very different, as the pair could have been fighting for those podium positions. And James Lofthouse will be out this weekend in a new car, after problems just before the start of the event meant the regular one wouldn't make it. He ends the day with 13th place overall and 4th in Class 8. Not bad, considering the adversity he faced before the start of competition. And for John Sagar, it will be 14th place overall, just behind Lofthouse in the class as well, with 5th in Class 8. Double entering the car this weekend, so it will be taking twice the amount of abuse that the others were. Stuart Anderson would travel to the event all the way from Aberdeen this weekend, and things will be going to plan on day one. Certainly worth the journey so far. 6th place in Class 8 and 15th on the leaderboard. For James and Ben Davidson, it will be 16th place on the leaderboard, as well as 7th in Class 8. And Craig Mason, meanwhile, will be the only one here in Class 3 this weekend. So the lead in that class would, of course, be his. All he had to do was keep it there to finish on day 2. Not always as easy as it sounds, as we've seen so far this season. For Jim and Jenny Canterbury, it will be 2nd place in Class 1. A different car for the pair this weekend, as they have to borrow one from a fellow competitor. Theirs was damaged the weekend before. They were in the fight for the championship, so they just needed to do their best, hold their own, keep their head down and get it to the end.
Totaled my Tomcat, so that's got me through the rest of the season, but someone's kindly lent me their car, so here I am, and we'll see what we can do. It's not what I'm used to, but we're still here and we're still in with a fighting chance.
Gary Bowers would suffer with a maximum time on the opening run of the day, the worst possible start. It would, sadly for him, put him on the back foot right from the start, but the times were looking good for the runs after that. For Mark Walker, it will be 4th place in Class 9. A steady run over day 1 would see the times pretty consistent throughout the day. He goes into day 2 in 20th overall. And a maximum on run 3 would ruin what looked like being a good result so far for Mark and Sarah Casely. They would, however, be in the lead of Class 2 after problems for others in that class as well. And there'd be problems for Luke Sagar. We mentioned the double drive before, but things hadn't got off to the best of starts. Luke heading out in the car first this morning and suffering with a maximum on the very first run of the day. Richard Cooper and Adam Turner would have a spin on the opening day, which shouldn't really have lost them that much time, but the car just wouldn't start, meaning a maximum on run 3. Either side of that, though, things had been going to plan, leaving them possibly to wonder what if. Ben Gill will be out in a new car this weekend. He'd be the only one in Class 6, but overall, things were not quite going to plan anyway. A maximum on the 4th run of the morning would see him down in 24th position. And Alan Bland will be making his first visit to this venue, and he'd be happy with the course as well, getting the car into 4th gear for only the 2nd time this season, enjoying some big slides along the way. Simon Adams would be having some issues. 2 maximum runs early in the day would see any chance of a good result perhaps out of the window. He was continuing though, and with good times on his clean runs, another man wondering what would have been had he not had those reliability issues. Carl Gudgeon and Phil Ibbotson would also be suffering with problems, one of which would be less mechanical and more crew error, running out of fuel after not putting any in before the run. And it would be mixed fortunes for Spencer and Bradley Hall. Some good times when things were going to plan, but a maximum and a slow time on the opening run wouldn't be doing the overall times any favours. Things would be worse though for Glyn and Gemma Smith. They'd have an overshoot early on, but worse was to come when they tipped the car onto its roof on run 3 of the event. So the first day of competition is complete. Is the lead for Huggy Farmer, looking to claim that overall championship victory this weekend. On to the second day of competition then, and the sun may have gone, but the dust would still remain. But how would the Northern Off-Road Championship dust settle after today? Well, let's find out. It would be the lead of the event for Huggy Farmer and Richard Rawlinson, managing to hold on to almost a minute of an advantage in that position.
We're doing all right. We've got a 50-second advantage. You just got to keep it real and do some real off-roading.
They'd be changed to second place though. Richard Copsey and Mark Shaw clawing their way back up the results to end the morning. They'd need this result for the championship, so they couldn't afford any more problems.
Yeah, it's all gone all right today. We're on a bit of catch-up. I think we're about 50 seconds away from lead, but we're putting in similar times to Wuggy, but 50 seconds is quite a long way, I think, to get the win. So we'll be happy to settle for second if all goes well.
After cleaning up his driving, it will be third place for Toby Jefferson. Still going well, even though he'd now slipped down to that position with the advance of the results for Copsey. And of course, it would be a slip down to fourth place for Aston Cox if you were wondering where he was. The times were still good and the lead in Class 8 was still his, with nobody looking likely to catch that class position either, but just didn't have the pace to match those leaders. Tim Sagar would still be enjoying some good times to end the morning with fifth place overall, still leading the way in Class 9 as well at this stage in the event.
Absolutely superb. This is first time out in this car and we were having a superb weekend. A well-run event, absolutely fantastic.
And with the problems of day one behind them, it would be sixth place overall for Steve Hill and Steve Armand. Steve giving Dad Andy a run round for one of the laps as well. Andy, of course, a previous competitor in the club a number of years ago, for those of you who remember him out there on the courses. Things would still be going well for Becca Clarkson. A few small mistakes would be seeing her lose a few seconds, but nothing that wasn't to be expected for the first time out in the car. Seventh place overall for now.
Yeah, it's been good, yeah. Really enjoying it still. Spun out this morning on my third run, so I lost about 10 seconds, but just getting used to the car really and learning how to drive, so yeah.
And Matt and Edmund Elvin will be starting to put right those issues from day one, moving up the leaderboard and into 8th place now. The time's good enough for third in Class 9. John Sagar would still be leading the way out of the pair double driving this car, lying in 9th place overall, second in Class 8 at this stage. And rounding out our top 10 now will be James Lofthouse, third place in Class 8, and things still going well at this stage. As always, there is a bit of attrition. These courses do take their toll on driver, crew and car. And we'd lose Dean Hoskins and Tim Longfield. Gearbox problems at the start of the day would put an end to their event. Meanwhile, things would be going much better now for Gary Bowers, climbing up as far as 11th place at this stage and clearly trying as well. There'd be a few scary moments along the way, but nothing that would affect the times. Mark and Sarah Casely were also starting to climb back up the results to where they would have been expected to be. They end the morning with 12th place overall, still leading the way in Class 2. And for James and Ben Davidson, it will be 4th place in Class 8, lying in 13th place overall as well at this point in the event. This man, Luke Sagar, will be in 5th place in the class behind Davidson. The times were close though, going into the dying stages of the event. The fight was very much still on. We do though lose Stuart Anderson when mechanical and distributor issues put an end to his event. Richard Cooper and Adam Turner would suffer another spin this morning just like they had on day one. Thankfully, this time the car would get going right away, not costing them a maximum time for once. And Ben Gill was getting a little more used to the new car now. He would, of course, still be the only one in Class 6 and lying in 16th place on the overall leaderboard, which really was his benchmark today. Jim and Jenny Canterbury would be doing all that they could to keep those championship hopes on track. Sadly, a running problem with the car would see the pair struggling on some of the faster sections of the course. They do, though, however, lead the way in Class 1 now. It wasn't over just yet. Unfortunately for Ian Goodyear, it will be a slip down the leaderboard and into 18th place. A maximum on run 9 would be the cause of that position change. And Phil Bayliss would end the morning still leading the way in Class 4. Sadly, this would be as far as he went, not getting out on the afternoon runs of the event. Meanwhile, there were no change in the results for Mark Walker, continuing to lie in 20th overall, as well as 5th place in the hotly contested Class 9. Alan Bland still having a good run, lying 2nd place in Class 1 and 21st overall. A little way back from Walker, up ahead though, it had to be said. Frustratingly, the day would come to an end for John Rennie. A few maximums on the final runs of the morning would see him calling it a day. And things were not really getting any better either for Simon Adams on day 2. Another maximum time just before the lunch break would put him back down the results and end any possible advance. 23rd overall for now. So we reached the midpoint of day 2, and there would be some changes to the results, but that lead overall still looked safe. All that needed doing now was deciding a championship. Onto the final runs of the event then, and of course, they are championship deciding. We would lose Spencer and Bradley Hall, the gearbox breaking on the car, and although they do manage to get it fixed, they'd run out of time and were unable to complete all of their runs. We'd also lose Gary Bowers from the results in the afternoon runs, his event coming to an end on run 11 after climbing back up the results throughout the morning. Sometimes the way, but it's ever so frustrating. For Luke Sagar, though, it wasn't the end to the event that he would have wanted. Maximums on the final runs of the day would mean 20th overall. And Adam Bland was having some troubles of his own, hitting a concrete block and damaging the suspension. Without a spare, it would be drastic measures, taking one off the road car to use for the remaining runs. It worked, though, taking 2nd in Class 1 and 19th overall. Proper Clubman Motorsport. Of course, problems for one Sagar mean problems for another. The pitfalls of sharing a car. So that would mean for John Sagar, it will be 18th place overall, missing the last 2 runs of the event. Simon Adams manages to get a good few runs in without any problems, ending the event with 17th place overall and 2nd in the class. He does manage a fastest time as well, which of course is some consolation this weekend. Mark Walker manages to end the event with 16th place overall, taking 5th in Class 9 in the process as well. It's frustration though for Jim and Jenny Canterbury. The championship wasn't to be theirs this time around. They end the event with 15th place. Not quite enough to take the win, but a fantastic end to the season, taking 2nd place overall in the championship, just 2 points behind the winners. For Ian Goodyear, it will be 14th place overall at the end of the event, taking 4th in Class 8 with that result as well. Meanwhile, Ben Gill set some good times on his first time out in the new car. With more miles under his belt, the results will surely start to come. This weekend, he was 13th overall. Richard Cooper and Adam Turner reached the end of the event with 4th place in Class 9, 12th place overall. And for James Lofthouse, it will be 11th place overall, slipping down a place in the final runs of the event, but a great result to end the day in a car that he wasn't used to. We move on to that top 10 then, and it will be 10th place overall for James and Ben Davidson. They also take 2nd in Class 8 as well. Mark and Sarah Casely managed to get themselves as far as 9th place overall by the end of the event. They do also take the Class 2 victory. And it will be a good debut in the car for Becca Clarkson. 8th place overall at the end of the event and taking a 1st in class trophy as well. It didn't end up being quite what it could have been for Matt and Edmund Elvin. A 5-minute penalty would unfortunately mean they miss out on a podium position, but they do take 7th place overall and 3rd in Class 9 as well. Tim Sagar would end the event just above Elvin on the class and overall results. 6th place and 2nd in the class was a good end to the weekend. With those problems of day 1 not returning, it would be a good end to the event for Steve Hill and Steve Armand. Perhaps wondering what could have been. They take the Class 9 win though, and 5th place overall. Also taking 5th in the championship for the season as well. For Aston Cox, meanwhile, it will be 4th place this weekend and indeed in the championship this season. A good end to the event for him as well, taking 1st in Class 8. Toby Jefferson manages to get himself a good result this weekend, continuing to entertain the spectators with plenty of sideways, sometimes perhaps a little too much sideways. He ends the event with that final step on our podium. For Richard Copsey and Mark Shaw, it was a valiant fight. Second place this weekend. The earlier problems hadn't done them any harm. They do enough to take victory in the championship this season by just 2 points. But that means that this weekend, victory would belong to this man, Huggy Farmer, Richard Rawlinson alongside. A long-awaited win for the pair and a great way to end the season, even if it wasn't quite with the championship win. So a reminder then of the results at the end of the event and at the end of a remarkable season. That's second place, enough to give Richard Copsey the title for 2017. A hotly contested, a great battle to the end of the season.
No, unfortunately, it's been a fantastic weekend's racing. It's been really close. It's been right down to the wire. I think Richard Copsey's won it from Jim Canterbury and then myself, but I've won the event. I couldn't do any more for trying. Cars run fantastically, and what can I say, it's been great. And thanks to Richard Rawlinson, my navigator, for pointing me right direction, helping me out, make sure car runs and getting us to end at season with a fantastic result.
Yeah, second overall in the championship with this stiff competition isn't so bad. So I'm pretty pleased with that. It's been a great weekend's racing, and really appreciate, massive thanks to my pal Peter Bauer to lend me his car, because I won't be here otherwise. So pleased with the result. So it's all good.
We had a bit of a rough start, but we got there in end, and big thanks to Mark Shaw here. He's navigated for us all year and spanned the car in his free time. And thanks to all marshals and timekeepers and everything what makes it possible in club, because it wouldn't run without them. So do you want to say out, Mark?
No, just like the same, reiterate, thanks to everybody, all competitors especially. Been some good competition, been great season, look forward to next year.
And we just
thanks to Groundtrax for sponsorship this year.
Yeah, Groundtrax,
been really appreciated.
Yeah, and just like to add, I mean, everybody's come through a real roller coaster of a championship this year. We just didn't think we'd get anywhere near dropping 2 rounds, but most people, others had dropped 2 rounds, and it's just worked out in our favour. And congratulations to Brian Huggy Farmer, TikTok Racing, for his win. He's absolutely drove wheels off that car at Wickenby here, so that's brilliant for him to go out on a win. Really happy for him.